You see the headlines every single day, right? Stocks are up, stocks are down. But what if the real story isn't just about the numbers flashing on your screen? What if it's about the competing stories, the narratives that are actually driving those numbers? Well, in this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on the conflicting currents shaping global markets today and what it all means for you.
And just to give you a sense of the scale we're talking about, let's just look at one company, Nvidia. They recently blew past a $5 trillion market cap. I mean, that's a first in history. This isn't just some new record. It's a massive symbol of this incredibly powerful AI wave that is completely reshaping our world.
So yeah, the AI rally is without a doubt the dominant theme right now. It's what everyone is talking about. But it's really only one piece of a much, much larger puzzle. To really get what's going on, we have to look past the hype and understand the other forces at play.
You see, this AI wave, it's not happening in a vacuum. It's being supercharged by a pretty favorable economic climate. There are widespread expectations that the Federal Reserve might start cutting interest rates, and we're even seeing some signs of U.S.-China trade tensions easing up. All of that gives investors the confidence to pour money into big, bold bets like AI.
But here's where things get really interesting. As all this capital floods into AI, it has to come from somewhere, right? Well, it's actually draining away from other sectors. And this creates this huge contradiction right at the heart of the market, and it paints a much more complicated picture than you might think. So on the one hand, the US is like a giant magnet for cash right now. Investors all over the world feel good about the American economy, so they're snapping up US assets. But, and this is a huge but, at the very same time, we're seeing a shocking drop in funding for sustainable development. You know, things like renewable energy and clean water. Investment there has fallen by over 30%.
And this chart just drives the point home. Look at that contrast. While U.S. assets are seeing all this positive growth, sustainable investment has absolutely plummeted. And that raises a really important question. What happened? Why is the green investment movement, which seemed unstoppable, suddenly hit a brick wall?
Okay, so you have this wild, complex market with signals pointing in opposite directions. How are the smart investors adapting? Well, they're starting to look beyond the obvious plays, and they're searching for new tools and opportunities to find their way through all this uncertainty.
One of the biggest shifts is happening in private markets. For the longest time, this area has been a complete black box. Deals happened behind closed doors, nothing was public, so it was almost impossible to tell how well one investment was doing compared to another. But now you have major players like Hamilton Lane and BlackRock teaming up to create tools that give us unprecedented access to data. This is an absolute game changer. For the first time, investors can properly benchmark performance in things like private equity and credit.
And having this kind of transparency is critical because, as this quote from Landstone Partners points out, the world has fundamentally changed. A portfolio that was great in the 2010s might be totally wrong for today's environment. It's basically a huge warning sign that it's time to adapt.
So what's the result? Well, people are starting to seriously look for alternatives. They're getting a little nervous about having all their eggs in the U.S. tech basket. Even entire countries are thinking this way. Take Slovenia. They're planning to issue what are called panda bonds, which are bonds sold in Chinese currency. Why? To attract a totally different set of investors. It just goes to show you, diversification isn't just a nice idea anymore. It's becoming absolutely essential.
So we have the AI boom, the sustainability slump, this hunt for alternatives. What is the one invisible force pulling the strings behind all of it? Well, the answer really lies with the immense, quiet power of central banks, especially the U.S. Federal Reserve.
To really get the Fed's influence, you have to understand a concept called forward guidance. Honestly, the best way to think of it is like a trailer for a movie. The central bank isn't telling you what it's doing right now. It's telling a story about what it plans to do in the future. And that story is what steers how investors behave today.
And that really is the key insight here. The Fed's true power doesn't just come from its actions, like actually cutting interest rates. It comes from its words, the hints, the signals, the whole narrative it builds. That story can actually move markets even more than the policy change itself.
So when you connect all the dots, from the AI boom that's fueled by a narrative of optimism to the decline in green investing that's driven by a narrative of uncertainty, you see the pattern. The market isn't just reacting to numbers on a spreadsheet. It's reacting to stories. And right now, the most powerful storyteller out there is the central bank.
So that's the big picture. But how do we actually use these insights? What does this mean for your own investment strategy? Let's break down the key takeaways for navigating this pretty tricky market. Okay, first, stay diversified. The AI boom is exciting for sure, but don't get over-concentrated. Second, take a look at those new tools for private markets. There could be real opportunities there. Third, be ready to move your money around. Think about rotating between different countries or different themes as the environment changes. Fourth, and this is a big one, listen to the story the central banks are telling, not just the rate announcements. And finally, remember that no trend lasts forever. Even a promising sector like sustainability will have its ups and downs.
So at the end of the day, the market is really a clash of two powerful stories: the story of disruptive technology and the story of guiding policy. The real question is, which one are you following? Thanks for joining me.